Welcome to the Liberating Joy and Learning podcast. I'm Brina Beckstrand, and today we're continuing our discussion of the primary lens working with resistance. As we mentioned last time, this is the primary lens most associated with the cringeworthy concept of self-discipline. There are a lot of great quotes out there that help us with self-discipline in our learning. Here are a few of my favorites, along with some thoughts about them. Jeff Goins said, "What it takes to become great at your craft is practice, but not just any kind of practice, the kind that hurts, that stretches and grows you." So what do you think of that?
I agree.
Okay, so in my mind, it needs to be the right kind of stretching, the right kind of hurt that helps you, helps you progress.
Well, he says what it takes to become great at your craft is practice. Not just the kind of practice, it's the kind that hurts. You need to be pushing yourself. You need to be stretching. You're not going to be successful if you don't stretch yourself, no matter what you're doing.
Right. It needs to be uncomfortable, but the right kind of discomfort.
Right.
Okay, next one. Marcus Aurelius said, "Habitual reoccurrence to the harmony will increase your mastery of it." Marcus Aurelius, he talks differently, right?
Yeah, he does. He's a little bit older.
Right. But to me, it's about failures and successes, right? So we have to have failures, but we also have to have successes.
Right.
Okay, next one. Another one by Marcus Aurelius. "Practice even when success looks hopeless."
Yes, that's the hard one to understand and pursue. Because if the result is success looks hopeless, you're doing something you don't know if you're going to succeed. You don't know if you're going to master it. And by continuing to progress, if it's something that you are passionate about or something that really is important to you, you will eventually get to that success. But that is a hard concept to understand and to accept.
Right, because it could be a time to say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And there is a decision. Am I really going to keep going with this? And there's no right or wrong answer. It just depends on what you really want. Do you really want to learn this, or do you need to come out a different direction, or just plug along, keep going in that darkness or whatever. All right, Henry David Thoreau, not much better than Marcus Aurelius, but a little bit. "Every man looks at his woodpile with a kind of affection."
Yeah. Well, because if you think about it, if you're looking at your woodpile, it's wood that you've gathered, that you've cut up, that you've assembled, and that you stacked. You went through the process, and so that's you're working towards a goal.
Right. It doesn't just make you happy; it feeds your soul.
Right.
It's just this,
to see that sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I really like that one. Anyway, what do you do to help you when self-discipline is a challenge?
You just have to keep plugging along. I mean, for me, if I have a goal that I want to accomplish and life happens and I'm not able to continue to progress and work towards that, you just have to keep working at it. I mean, you understand that life happens, and sometimes your timeline gets pushed,
right?
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're able to come back to it and continue progressing.
Right. And you just have to keep going with what you do know.
Right.
Until you can see further
along
the path.
Yeah. Work and momentum give us clarity, like the proverbial step of faith into the darkness. Jeff Goins explains that clarity comes with action. We can learn to see each contact with resistance as guidance in the direction we should take next. Typically, or ideally, when we assemble something, we read the instructions provided and then act on those instructions until we complete them. Then we read the instructions given, and the next step, complete it and repeat. Each time we reach what feels like a stopping point in learning or a setback, we'll simply go back to the instruction manual and see what the next step is. Jeff Goins also says that we may even be able to celebrate those setbacks and trials, the things that once assumed so daunting, knowing they are all signs that we are on our way. Kevin Ashton believes that the only way to be productive is to produce when the product is bad. Bad is the path to good. In this way, working with resistance gives life to our learning claims and growing desires, no matter how our learning looks as we start and as we progress along the way. So what new insights have you gained by pressing forward to act even when you didn't want to?
I took some notes ahead of time and I just wrote down growl because I'm in that place today where I need to talk about working with resistance because that's where I'm at. I'm working with
Right.
with a lot of resistance,
Right, a bunch of things.
Yeah, I mean, life is good, but it's also
Right.
Generally frustrating.
Right, and sometimes you have to go through the motions.
Yeah.
To keep progressing. You keep doing things that you know are going to benefit you eventually, even if you don't want to do them. But sometimes, like I said, life happens and you don't want to. But if you abandon those motions, then it's a setback. You get further back than what you want. You lose that progress that you've made to get to that point.
Right.
And so going through the motions, it's like putting yourself in idle. Mm-hmm. Or when you're driving a car and you come to a stop sign, it goes into idle. It doesn't shut off. Well, if you have the auto start, auto stop feature that drives people nuts, it goes into idle, and you're just waiting until you get the green light to go again. But it's still idling. It hasn't shut off.
Right.
And that's why we don't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As we work with resistance, we also seek for harmony in the world around us. By so doing, we discover more beauty in ourselves and the world. Each small effort we make at learning that ends with resistance is just one whole act that is part of a larger process. Examples might include each stroke of a boat oar in the water, or each reach and pull of the arms in water to swim, constitutes a complete action. Put together with a multitude of such actions, along with kicking our legs and swimming, it allows for movement towards a goal. We experience the full beauty of our learning as we regularly and continually work with resistance. So the question is, when have you seen a lot of difficult choices result in something beautiful?
Well, we can say a most recent example would be raising kids.
Right.
So there's a lot of tough choices as parents, a lot of hard things.
Right.
Especially when they're younger and, you're trying to corral and take care and manage multitude of things. And then, our daughter recently got married, and that is beautiful, and she can go live her life and face her own difficult choices and work with her own resistance.
Right.
But it is a beautiful thing.
Right.
Each step along the way when they start school or when there's a lot of beautiful steps along the way, but that all result from our own personal choices to work with that resistance.
Right.
Anything that comes to your mind?
No, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
When defining working with resistance for learning claims, I ask myself, how am I ready to take action in the face of resistance? What work can I do next that will bring life to what I care about? What will jumpstart action and move me along the path I've set out for myself? A while ago, I was really struggling with some challenges, and I found joy in identifying one thing to be grateful for. Just one, with no expectation of more. That single action made all the difference, even though I really only had the ability to be grateful for one thing at that point. So sometimes it's really just one action.
Right.
And that's okay to just have one action. Sometimes an action will open the door for a lot of other things.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't, and you just have to do that one thing.
Right.
When using this one with learning claims, I define this one largely with a question about what kind of work I might do next. Some examples include, how do I communicate joy to others? What is the best way to decompress now? What crazy thing can I do to make a difference for someone else? What barriers to learning can I help with next? Working with resistance is a lot like learning to walk on stilts. At some point, you just have to challenge the resistance of gravity and jump on and start walking. And then you have to keep your feet working and moving in order to stay up. Just like you mentioned earlier, you have to keep moving.
Right.
Here are some questions that might help you keep working with resistance, even when you feel like you're on stilts and you're ready to topple over. Does your work in learning create energy? Does your work create momentum that keeps you going and takes you to the next step? What work can you do next to move forward with resistance in your learning claims? What can you do after that? What action will most invigorate your learning? What new opportunities do you see when you look outside yourself? Which of these opportunities motivates you to action? When I'm progressing in my ability to work with resistance, I can more confidently take risks, act despite life's messiness, understand how to act on what I care about despite challenges, and evaluate how my choices will affect my sphere of influence. So when have you seen growth while working with resistance?
Well, we've shared a number of examples as we've gone through this podcast. And then recently with Rodar getting married. I think one example that I've been thinking of is when I initially lost my job.
Yeah.
Back in 2008. Is that when it was? Yeah, it's 2008. And that was big resistance, and we didn't know what we were going to do. And I was just kind of spinning my wheels for a while, just going through the motions of, trying to find work, doing whatever I could to put food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually that led us going to China, it led us going back to Nevada, and now it led us to go to here. All those steps, all those choices, all that working that we did.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, we couldn't tell what the end result was going to be.
Right.
And so, it could be something as grand as that. It could be something as simple as learning how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Like your example being on stilts. Sometimes you got to get to the point where you just have to put your feet on the pedals and ride.
Right. Yeah, I playing the piano. Certainly, anytime you play an instrument,
Right.
you have to work with the resistance of the instrument,
Right.
and all of the aspects of that, whether it be flute or
Right.
with your fingers, like with the piano. And then we talk a lot about disc golf and
Right.
work with the resistance of the discs and the wind and the tee pad, right? Like there's
Right.
a lot of aspects of that. And as you we play often, and I'm terrified of the day when we can't play as often because
Right.
we won't see that improvement when we aren't consistently working at something, even if
Right.
we just play mediocre, right? Like when we played yesterday, it was just
Yeah.
mediocre, but we keep playing and then we can keep improving.
Right.
So
Right.
we just have to pick something and keep doing it.
Right. Yeah. So now you know a little bit more about working with resistance and how it gives us clarity and power in our learning. Next time, we're going to begin our discussion of the final primary lens, training with a mentor, where we learn to make the most of others who have gone before us in our learning's paths. If you have any questions on how this can be true for you, please reach out to us at learningliberated@gmail.com or on our Learning Liberated Facebook group with any questions or comments. And again, if this episode spoke to you or you really enjoyed it, please share it with someone else that might enjoy it as well. And let us know.
Bye.
Bye.